Hello, my darlings. How are you? I hope you're well. It is Friday here in Australia. It's very, very cold. I have been back home for a week now, and I'm. It was good at the start, but now it's back to reality, and there's lots going on. I'm going through lots of change at the moment, and also trying to get back into routine, which is really hard. But I thought the way to overcome that would be by talking to you. I always feel that when I talk about my reading, it can sort of steer me back on track and maybe motivate me a bit. This week I've been reading Like Love by Maggie Nelson, but I'm struggling with it a little bit. I've decided to DNF it for now, but I want to talk about that more in maybe like a separate video or something because this video is not about that. This is going to be my mid-year wrap-up. I have seen so many of my friends here on the internet talking about it, and so I've stolen the questions from my friend Renee from So I Read This Book. So yeah, I sort of wrote down some answers, and we'll just talk about what's been going on with my reading in the past year, the past 6 months more so, where I'm heading to, what I want to do more of, what I've been enjoying, all of that jazz. So the first question is sort of like, how have I been going with my reading? And I would say I've been going well. Like, I think I've read 37 books from what I can remember, sort of almost an even split of fiction to non-fiction, maybe 40 to 50, fiction being the dominant category, and mostly literary fiction, and auto fiction sort of stuff. But yeah, I feel like I've been reading a good spread. I didn't really have any goals per se in how many books I wanted to read. I sort of thought maybe one a week is sort of a good goal, 52 books in the year. I am definitely bigger than that, but I don't think I am reading as much as I was last year. But I feel like my goal this year was to be a little bit more intentional, and I've seen a lot more of my friends on here doing that too, and that's definitely motivated me. So I have been keeping a reading journal. I can do a whole video on that, where I take notes whilst I'm reading and write my thoughts at the end, because that's something I sort of let slip for a little bit, and I don't want to let slip because I want to be reading intentionally, getting out as much as I can of the books I read, and so that has been something that I feel like I've been going well with. I also feel like I've matured a little bit with my reading this year in DNFing books. If I'm not liking something, I'm not as scared to put it down, whereas in the years before this, I have not really DNF'd books. I haven't really liked doing it. It's still something I struggle with, and I don't like not finishing them because it's like a week I feel like I've wasted, but it definitely isn't that. For example, Like Love, I just feel like it's not the right book for me at this point in time. I feel like my brain might need a few more years to get my head fully around what Maggie Nelson is trying to do, because she's so smart. So I've decided to shelve it, and I'll come back to it in a few years. It doesn't mean that I didn't like the book. It's just not there, and it's not the right time for me in that book, or some books aren't right for you at all ever, and I've read a few of those this year that I finished and some that I put down, but I feel like not having a really strict reading goal has allowed me to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more kind to myself, and really remember that reading is my hobby, and it shouldn't feel like a job. So therefore I feel like I'm maturing as a reader, and I'm really liking that. Also, I feel like I'm really hitting my stride with the types of books I like to read. I feel like I am in this like little sub universe where all the writers are connected, and they refer to each other and they interview each other, and I've been listening to so many podcasts and things like that, and I'm building a collection that I'm really proud of. So I'm loving reading this year. There's been a few slumps. I'm currently sort of in a slump, but I feel like I can get out of that because I've got so many books on my shelf that I need to get to. But yeah, that's the first question. How am I going with reading? I would say pretty good. Uh, then it goes on to my favorite book of the year so far, and that has to go to My Work by Olga Round. Look at that cover. She's stunning. I feel like I've talked about this book so much, and you guys are probably sick of hearing about it, but I cannot rave about it enough. If you don't know, this is sort of multifaceted. Look at all the underlines I've had in there. Olga Round it's an unnamed protagonist, and it's auto fiction, with no definitive timeline, the only fixed point in it being childbirth. So we span from pregnancy all the way to the years after she's had her first child, and it talks about the narrator's ability to grapple with this huge change and what it means to be experiencing this and being an artist and a writer, and where does this leave her, and sacrifice. And there's so many different forms in here. There's prose, there's poetry, there's journal entries, there's literally so much. so much, and I loved this book. I loved the cover. I loved the way the book has been constructed. I love Olga's writing. I just loved it so much, and I knew I'd like this book because so many of my friends here on BookTube love it, but I didn't expect it to be a favorite, and I just gobbled this up. I read it over a few days, and it's a longer one. It's like 400 pages, but it didn't feel like that, and I wish I could read this for the first time again. So if you read anything from this video, please let it be my work. And then the next question was the best sequel I read, and I don't actually, it's on my shelf. I'm just being a bit lazy, but I had this out already filming some TikToks. But Deborah Levy's The Autobiographical Living trilogy series, whatever you want to call it, has definitely been a favorite, like sequel, sort of just the best group of books I've read, I think, as a whole. I read this is my first read of the year, and then I moved on to The Cost of Living next, and I think I preferred The Cost of Living, but I also like 5 stars for this as well. I loved this. They were both amazing and exquisite, and commentated on different things. And I feel like these books are just hitting me at this point in my 20s when I'm grappling with so much change and movement and things along those lines. This one focuses more on her childhood and how that has impacted her as a woman and as a writer. And then the second book focuses more on her in the aftermath and during her mother's death. And Deborah Levy's very intentional with words. She says so much, but writes almost so little. But she's so elegant. She's also so funny. I've listened to so many podcasts with her in them, and I really love that. I also read Hot Milk a few weeks ago, and that was a really surprise read. I love that so much. It's hot, it's sweaty. I just really love the way Deborah Levy writes. I know some people can be iffy about her fiction, but I have really enjoyed Hot Milk and August Blue, so I'm definitely keen to read a little bit more of her fiction. And she has a good back catalogue of work that I feel like I really want to get to. And Real Estate is the final book that I need to get to in the autobiographical living series, but I'm savoring it. I want to read it like tomorrow, but I know that once it's over, I'm going to be really sad. And I hope there is a fourth book in the works. Maybe, fingers crossed, she gets a deal to write a few more, because she has so much wisdom. And I would be sad to see it all go to waste and not all of it come out. So, yeah, I am excited for that. Number 4 is a new release you're excited to read. And I think the easiest answer, and probably like the most expected answer at this point of the year, would be Parade by Rachel Cusk. I have read 5 Rachel Cusk books so far, and I know Renee has read all of them, and so I'm waiting for that video. But I am definitely keen to try and get through her whole back catalogue. And then, of course, Parade. To be honest, I don't know if I'm going to get to Parade this year, because I don't want to have to buy a larger format, which is the first year of release here in Australia. I want to wait till the small paperback comes out, so then I can have it match all the other books on my shelf. I might go and check out what the bookshops have, see if I can maybe get a copy of the smaller one, because yeah, I'm collecting them all, and I know that's a silly reason not to read. Maybe I'll read it on my Kindle. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. A lot of people have really been loving it, so excited to see where that leads me. Most anticipated release, I feel like I would have to say Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Pardon me, I think that's a book that's been doing its rounds, especially on TikTok. A lot of my friends have been receiving it, but no Australian content creators have actually received it yet, and I'm waiting. FSG, I think that's who's putting it out. Maybe not FSG. Anywho, Faber, I don't know who's putting it out, but send me a copy. I would love it. So, yeah, of course, I loved Normal People. I didn't really love Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I haven't read Conversations with Friends. But I'm excited for Intermezzo. I feel like that's everyone's most anticipated release, maybe. The biggest disappointment book, which I'm really sad to say, is The Employees by Olga Round, which is really silly because My Work was my most favorite book. But The Employees, I feel like this was hyped up so much on the internet, and because I loved My Work so much, I thought I would love this. And I read this whilst I was away in Europe, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was my high hopes that really... It wasn't a bad book by any means, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I think that my hopes were just so high for it that it wasn't as great as I expected, which was really sad. And this book, if you didn't already know, follows, like, it's set in the 22nd century, and it's called like a modern workplace novel, and it follows this group of human and humanoids who are sent to space to live and coexist and work. And there's an event that's happened, and it's a non-linear format full of statements. So the statements are out of order, and we slowly piece together what's happened. But I think maybe because it was hyped up, but also the sci-fi element of it, I couldn't really get behind. Something really icky. It sort of freaks me out because I remember watching The 100. This sort of reminded me of The 100 when I was like maybe in year 7 or something. That movie, like, TV show, gave me nightmares. So I think that sort of transported me back there, and I didn't love it as much as I thought. But maybe it will be a reread in a few years, and I know Ben really loves this, so maybe I need to give it a second chance and come back around to it. My biggest surprise book, I feel like I've read a lot of books that surprised me, and I can't, like, in how good they were, and I didn't expect to love as much. One being the autobiography of X by Catherine Lacey. This was refreshing, and it's like a fake memoir almost, but it's fiction, and it follows a wife who's grieving for her artist wife, who has passed away and has a lot of secrets, and she's slowly going through and uncovering these secrets. And it was quite long. It was like 400 pages and a big book. Like, it was a big format, so it was probably even thicker than that when it will come out in a smaller version. But I don't know. It was just refreshing, and it was queer, and it had photos throughout it, and I think all of it together just. I think I listened to it partly on audio too, and it was a really, really nice experience, and I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. Also, The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, another book I didn't expect to love, but I did really, really get around this. The only thing I didn't like was the ending. I felt it was a little bit premature, but it was what I wanted whilst I was away because it's a big novel, and I sat with it. I think it took me 2 weeks to read, and yeah, not that it was like the best book I've read this year, and it definitely probably isn't even in my top 10 by the end of the year. Actually, it might be, I don't know. But I think for a longer book, I'm happy to have read it, and I'm happy to be able to join the discourse because I feel like every man and his dog's read this book. But yeah, a surprise read there. And maybe two other books that, like, honorable mentions of surprises would be Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. I sort of expected to like it, but not quite as much as I did. I really, really enjoyed that. And Paul by Daisy Lafarge. I thought that was the perfect summer read. Thank you, Katie James. Katie James dies on the hill of this book. This book is by no means a comfortable read. It's really icky, it's sticky, and it's yuck. And it made me feel so unsettled, but it was a good book. And I felt like the fact that it could evoke those emotions in me means that it's a good book. Um, Books that made me cry. I don't know if any books particularly made me really, really cry, but a book that's really upset me and brought me close to tears is two books. One being Blue by Derek Jarman, which is actually a script from a film that Derek Jarman wrote on his deathbed as he was going blind due to HIV. And this book just really upset me. I don't know. I feel like it would upset most people. And I think it did a really powerful job of driving home what it was like to be losing your friends, losing a part of yourself, and facing the fact that you were going to die. And I can't imagine what it was like for the queer community to deal with so much loss and so much destruction and so much fear. So that book quite upset me. And also The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. It's the only Morrison I've read, and it took me a while to read it. I think it took me 2 weeks to read it just because of how powerful Toni Morrison's writing is and the complex topics she commentates on and does so in such an elegant way. And that book really almost made me sob, and I had to put it down so many times. I feel like if I had sat through and read it in like 2 sittings, I definitely would have been blubbering like a baby, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Most of you have probably read The Bluest Eye, but if you haven't, The Bluest Eye sort of follows a young black girl who yearns for blue eyes, and it's a beautiful commentary and tragic commentary on beauty standards and discrimination and so many interesting and sad things, but very important read. And if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend it. The biggest TikTok regret books, or a book that TikTok told me to read and I regret reading it, would probably be Mayflies by Andrew O'Hagan. A lot of people on TikTok said this is like Shuggy Bane, and I love Shuggy Bane. And I think the only reason that people compare it to Shuggy Bane is because it's Scottish. That's the only thing I could see. And I guess there's no queerness in this book, which I don't know. The fact comparing it to Shuggy Bane when queerness is such a central theme of Shuggy Bane, not off put me, but I just think they were very different, and I wouldn't necessarily say they're the same just because they're written by two Scottish authors and set in Scotland. I think Mayflies is about about a friendship group in the 80s in Scotland, and then it fast forwards 40 years or 20 years or something when one of the friends has news for the other. And I think the thing that caused this book to fall flat on its face was the fact that it's not long enough. I couldn't get attached to these characters, and so by the time they were facing this massive life-changing event, I didn't really care because I hadn't got attached to them, and the way they were written didn't really make me like them. Whereas in Shuggy Bane, I was attached to Shuggy, I was attached to Agnes, I was attached to all these characters, and they were written so real. Whereas I just couldn't get that out of Mayflies, and it's raved about on TikTok. And yeah, I don't know, it's just, they said it's about music, and if you like Patti Smith as well, they said you'd like it. But to be honest, I wasn't about this book. The more I think about it, the more I did not like it. And to be honest, I don't really get a lot of books from TikTok. Most of my book rates come from my friends here on YouTube. So I don't really read any TikTok related books, which is interesting because that's mainly where I post. But I'm trying to bring the YouTube books over to TikTok. That's my goal. The most beautiful book I bought this year, to be honest, I bought so many books, literally so many books. I think, I don't know, I probably bought close to 50 books this year, which is ridiculous. And so many have beautiful covers. I feel like I mostly buy books based on the covers, which is problematic, but it's true. Maybe one of the books that I could think of that off the top of my head is being on my list because of its cover is Your Love Is Not Good. I was trying to read that backwards, but this is a really striking cover, and I love the color, and it's a good size. And I actually might read this next because I'm feeling like a good piece of fiction, and apparently this is it. And I'm sort of feeling that this might give Autobiography of X vibes. What do you think? Have you read it? Let me know what you think. I know if you have read this, and that's where I got the recommendation from. So I'm excited to read this, and I think it's a very, very beautiful cover. But I've got so many Fitzcarraldos as well. Actually, okay, this is pretty beautiful because this is a signed copy of the Alphabetical Diaries, which I got from Foyles in London. So I guess that's also beautiful. I'm sort of just looking around like at books I bought. I bought some Cusk this year, which is also beautiful. Some Levy. This book here, Durga Chowbo's Too Much and Not the Mood. I want to talk about that on here because I feel like I don't see it mentioned a lot, but it's a very, very good read. So yeah, those are some books I bought and I really like. Books you want to read by 2025? Pretty much just everything in my Europe haul. I'm going to try and get through everything on my TBR. Maybe I should just make a video on my TBR, but I feel like my hauls have sort of summed that up. But there's still a few books on there that I've had there for ages. But I want to read more Cusk, which I'll probably have to buy more of. I only got one Cusk on my shelf. More Levy. I want to finish the autobiographical living series. I want to read more Patti Smith. I want to try and get through the other two books I've got sitting on my shelf of hers, and then I'm pretty much all up to date with everything I can get my hands on. And Patty's writing a new book at the moment. Are you excited? I've been in cahoots with her editor through TikTok, and I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, be excited for Patty's new book. And who else? I'm trying to look at my list. I don't know. Like, there's so many different books I want to read, but I'm sort of just not putting too much pressure on it. I guess just reading what I want to read, what I'm feeling in the moment, and what I feel like I'm going to get the most out of is a good idea. I'm also making a move soon. I don't want to say too much about that, but I'm moving soon and I'm starting a new job, which isn't to do with reading. I'm a paramedic, if you didn't know, so I don't know where my reading will go in the latter half of the year because there's just going to be a lot on. But I'm excited to read and hopefully just keep it as a hobby that's like fulfilling me because I just don't want it to feel like a chore. So yeah, just not putting too much pressure on it, I guess, is my goal. My fave video that I've posted a few videos I've really liked this year, especially on TikTok, but also here on YouTube. And one of the videos I loved was my postcard to Europe video, but that just didn't do that well. But I think that was more of a video I made for me and my family and my friends to look back on. And a video that I thought would flop but did really well was the Europe haul, like the first Europe book haul I did the day that I went shopping. Well, it's like the haul from when I went shopping with Dakota Warren. And that was a crazy moment because Dakota's been such an icon and a hero that I really aspired and looked up to, especially like a few years ago when I was studying at uni. And she was also from Melbourne, and she made this big move to London, and she's made it. She is writing her own book that's being published, and she has all these beautiful things. And to meet someone and to spend the day with someone who, I don't know, it was just a really amazing experience. But that being said, I posted a video of all the books that I bought during that time. And I thought that video wouldn't do well because the lighting was really bad. It was not like the production value of it wasn't great because I was in this dodgy Airbnb in London that was disgusting. But that video did really well and people really liked it. And I think these like sit down videos where I don't edit them are doing surprisingly well compared to what I thought they would. But Ben has just revived that here on YouTube, and it has really motivated me to post because I don't feel the need to over edit. And I literally don't cut these. I just chop the end, chop the start, and call it a day. But I feel like that's made YouTube a lot more accessible for me, and with the less amount of time I have, I can still hopefully post a video every one time every 2 weeks or so. But yeah. Um, Upcoming video I'm excited to make. This video, I'm excited to maybe get back into vlogging, maybe just do a few more reviews. I don't know. I'm not putting pressure on it. I feel like for so long I put too much pressure on my TikTok and on my YouTube and things like that. But they're just things I do for fun, and I really enjoy talking to you guys. So I'm just excited to see where the wind blows me. There's no like specific videos I'm excited to make. I'm excited to put this out, even though it's late. But yeah, that's about that. And my goals, in terms of social media and things like that, I would say uh, I want to not put pressure on things, of course, but I would love to be able to get to 5K subscribers here on YouTube. And I just hit 50,000 followers on TikTok, so I know it's a bit ambitious, but hopefully 75,000 would be absolutely phenomenal. I would be so over the moon with that. But of course, what will happen, and I don't post as much as I used to, and I'm starting to post a little bit of different stuff there and not put so much pressure on myself. I mean, seriously, take a shot every time I've said that. But yeah. So from the questions I could find, those are the questions for the mid-year reading tag. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got a few new book recommendations, and yeah, I'm gonna put out a video maybe next week about all the books I read in Europe, and that's about it, to be honest. I have no real updates for you. I think I'm going to start Your Love Is Not Good soon, and maybe read a poetry collection before that, just to like palate cleanse from Like Love, because Like Love was just like too big brain energy for me right now. But yeah, what are you reading? What are you enjoying? Have you read any of these books? What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear from you. And I'll speak to you soon. Toodaloo. Goodbye.